Welcome to Expertsoft. Detailed overview on SAP S4HANA Transportation Management Module. Training duration, 25 to 30 hours. For training content, please visit our website in the description.
So good morning, everyone. So myself is Virendra, and I've been working in SAP over more than 20 plus years now. And primarily my experience in SAP Transportation Management is more than 12 years. So I work as a global subject matter expert, architect, and as a freelancer. And I will be the point of contact for this particular, SAP Transportation Management sessions, mainly from the functional and technical side. And Naveen will be the point of contact mainly from the administrative and from the other, individual clarifications what is required. Okay. So thanks for joining and hope we'll have a good overview session. So I hope everyone can see my screen and my voice is audible to everyone.
Yes, no.
Yes, Virender.
Okay. So just let me make my. So does anyone have an idea, not about SAP TM, but what is the basic transportation management feature in supply chain nowadays? Can anyone tell me? Again, just an overview, like what do you understand by transportation management?
Yeah, moving goods from one destination to another destination.
Yes, right.
And
Any other?
source.
Yes. Any other thing which you need to add?
Moving of the goods from not only by road but by air or by sea, different means of transport.
Yes. So basically, first of all, transportation management is applicable for all the industries LOB. LOB means line of business. So it is not only that we use transportation management in CPG industry or mining industry or IS retail, but rather it is applicable for all the industries. The second part is that transportation management is the backbone of the supply chain network. Why I say backbone? Because whether we talk about outbound process or whether we talk about inbound process, everywhere throughout the entire supply chain network, we need transportation to move the cargo from the source to the destination. Now, the movement of the cargo from source to destination can happen through multiple mode of transport. That is number one. And it can also happen based on the availability of resource. So when I say availability of resource means you need either a truck or a rail car or a vessel or a ship or a flight or by a postal service to move the transport, right? So that's why if I just summarize what is transportation management, it is defined as the movement of the cargo from the source location to the destination location using a specific means or mode of transport and using a specific resource. So there are four terminologies I have used: source location, destination location, mode of transport, and resource. These are the four crux of your entire supply chain process, because unless you know the source and destination, you cannot determine a transport process. Unless you know how you are planning to move the transport, that is the mode of transport, you cannot move the transport. And the last part is resource, because unless you have the means to move the transport, your transportation movement of the cargo cannot happen from source to destination. So that's why the transportation covers all these four dots and give you the supply chain process. Now, in case you are not using transportation management, so basically now I go a little bit into the SAP's history. Before SAP Transportation Management came into the picture, we used to use the module called as logistics execution. I don't know how much of you, has anyone have experience working in logistics execution, where you used to create the shipment document, shipment cost document?
Yes, I do have.
Yes. So we used to use the transaction VT01 and VI01, right? So where after you create your order and delivery, in order to manage and monitor your transportation, we used to create a shipment document. So always shipment document is the reference source of your transportation process. But now there are many drawbacks of the ELITRA process. I will explain all those things once we officially kick off the classes. But because of certain drawbacks, SAP has decided to discontinue or stop the support of Elytra after 2027. Initially it was 25, now it's 27, but what I'm hearing, it will be extended till 2030. What does that mean? This means that after that particular time, SAP will not be supporting with Elytra module licenses, nothing. So the only option you have is now that the future to be model of transportation is SAP TM. And when you go a deep dive into SAP TM, you will see that there are a lot of features which SAP TM offers, which we never used to have in Elytra. Actually, Elytra was an extension of ECC functionality, not more on the transportation functionality. And if you can do some Google also, like how transportation industry works. We are not here to talk about industry, but if you have time, please go through the Google a little bit to understand what is transportation industry all about. And later on, we can see that your TM solution is completely leveraging the transportation process, which is as per the industry norms of transportation. So that's why your future to be roadmap of your transportation is SAP TM. And many times when I conduct demos, people ask that what is the future of transportation? What are the job prospectus? So before I go into the solution, means overall view, just to answer this part, so you can understand that nowadays is more than 52,000 plus ERP clients we have. Now for all these clients, they have to move to S4, right? S4 is the core business suite, which the 4th generation business suite, which you need to move on, right? Now, because your transportation management solution is SAP TM in the future roadmap, so you can understand the demand and the supply. So right now, the supply of SAP TM resource is very less. Like that means for every suppose 100 requirements, we have only 10 people, because people are trying to absorb and get accustomed to this new model. So the more faster you are in this cat race, the better you will have option to have a good career. And obviously new products have always takers for in the big IT industries. Okay, so before I move on to the process flow, any question?
Virendra, I have a question. So
Yes.
I'm not a technical background. So will this course have any technical coding or something related, or else it may be functional? It is tough to learn, or it will be easy for non-technical guy.
So during the last 4 to 5 years, whatever batches I have taken, almost every batch has 2 to 3 non-SAP folks. Okay.
Okay.
So now the objective here is that it is not, you don't have to code this. Coding is ABAP. Okay. We are here to learn functional, and everyone is new in TM. So you will be placed in the same rank like those others who are also who have SAP experience but are learning SAP TM. Okay. So it is
Okay.
as long as your process wise you understand. Learning the technology is not a huge thing, because I always focus on process, because that's what you are going to end up in any projects, right? Or any interviews where you attend from, for any of the industries. It is the process which will drive you through. So you are in the
Okay.
same level at other people. So I don't see any challenge there.
Okay. Fine, Virendra.
Hey, Virendra Pish on this side. We'll be covering all the processes which are being applicable in
Yes.
this transportation module.
Yes. So I
Okay.
quickly tell you about the content also, so that you
Sure.
can have an overview. Anyway, the content is there in our website. See, basically, like every SAP component has pillars, right? Like if you talk about SAP material management, we have the purchasing pillar, we have the inventory management pillar, we have the account determination pillar. Similarly, in SD also we have the order management, delivery, billing. Similarly, transportation management also has this pillar. We have the order management pillar, we have the planning pillar, we have the execution pillar, we have the charge management pillar. So these pillars we will be covering, because this makes an end-to-end process. Now, starting from master data, organizational structure, and then configuring, and I will go field by field level explanation, because what I do is that, many of the trainings, what JLE people does, they explain you the flow, but the field level implication is not covered, right? So whether in the end user or SPRO, I will explain you what are the implication of those fields. So these are the 4 pillars we'll be working on. In addition to that, I'll also be having a walkthrough on SAP to EWM integration. I will also conduct one technical class where, like in any projects you go, you may have to write RICEF objects, right? The development objects. So you need to know from which field level, from which table level that, you need to retrieve the data. That also I will cover. I will also cover condition concept. Condition means BRA plus, business rules framework. This is again an integration with transport management. That also I will cover. We'll also have an overview sessions on the integration with event management. Okay. So there also I will explain you how does EM and TM talk to each other. In addition to that, we'll mainly cover 2 industry processes. One is this shipper process, and another is the LSP process, logistics service provider. So these are the 2 industries where TM is deployed. We'll also cover the deployment option. So deployment option means how SAP TM can be deployed in your landscape. I'll explain that concept here. We'll also go through the architecture. Architecture means today all of you are experienced enough. So whenever you are going for any type of new jobs, if you are playing the role of an architect, you need to know the ecosystems with which TM talks, so that you can devise the entire architecture of that. So we'll also go through this architecture slide. So that, in other words, you'll have an hands-to-hand experience, overview sessions, and also we'll give you the access to the latest server, which is 2022. So right now, as you know, that SAP's S4 landscape is 2022, the latest one which has been released. So we have the latest server. We have the scenarios, the best practice part already configured there, because that can act as a reference for what you are want to build up, right? So I will request each one of you also to do the practice referencing the best practice data, so that in case you are stuck anywhere, you can always see the best practice flow and you can run your scenario end to end. And in addition to that, we'll provide you lot of certification books, lot of training materials. So just to give an example of what we'll provide you, because you are new into this area. So you will see here, there are some training documents we'll give you. End-to-end scenario, how to run end-to-end scenario document will be given. End-to-end configuration document will be given. These are in addition to the certification. And also lot of other scenarios which we'll cover, like we'll cover multi-drop scenario, we'll cover PRA plus. We'll also have a QADB session. So QADB means if you are working on in any type of implementation project, it is very important to know what type of questions you need to ask to the client to get your design fixed, right? So this is one of a very prime requirement, that what questions should I ask, being that I am new in TM. So for that, we'll share this document also to you, so that you can be prepared both in terms of configuration wise, as well as an expertise in any type of interview, or expertise in any type of projects where you'll be deployed, so that your design can be fixed. So we'll provide all this documentation to you. Did I answer your question?
Virender, one thing more. We'll be doing end-to-end thing in the server. Okay,
Yes.
along with the real life scenarios, or you'll be giving exposure to, let's say, to have implementation experience or implementation exposure. Any particular case study will be referring, or just like transaction point of view, we are going to touch this
This is the
module.
real-time vanilla process we have, which is this is the standard process we have in here. Okay, and this is the process we really have in most of the projects where we work on. Now, based on customer requirement, you need to do some enhancements, some modification. That's a different thing, but we'll run an end-to-end scenario.
So you are going to let us know about the enhancement points, enhancement things also, in what way or to what extent we can go for the enhancements, or just in terms of overview?
Yeah, overview I will explain you, but obviously I'm not a technical ABAP guy where I can do the coding, but I will show you the patties and the BAPIs, what you can look into. That's what I said. I will have one technical class on that. That technical class will deal with all these queries.
Okay, okay.
Virendra, I have one question
Yes.
on the master data. Are you going to take session on transferring the master data from S4 to TM?
So basically, since it's an embedded system, all the master data which gets transferred in embedded is through background RFC. So as I told you, I will cover master data. So how to create the master data from scratch and all will be shown.
But that is into the TM, not from the S4 to TM.
I will create some. So there are two types of master data. One master data is called as the local master data. One master data is called as the global master data. So what we call as a global master data is what is basically created in ERP and available in TM. And local master data is the one which is created locally in transport management. So being in the embedded system, that's the beauty of the embedded system, that because you are having both S4 and TM in the same server, so you don't need to do any addition, adoption in terms of any framework or technology. You don't have to do that. It is automatically replicated in TM once you are creating an S4.
Okay, but because why I'm asking, currently in our project, it is a decentralized TM, and there
Yes.
are lots of issues we are facing for the transferring master data into the TM.
Yes. So see,
So would
as
like
I
to
told
know
you,
about those things also.
see, basically, that is a sidecar scenario, and in any sidecar scenario, the BGRFC is not applicable. It is mainly your either you use DRF or you use SIF. These are the two applications you use. But this
Yes.
I cannot show you that because this is an embedded process I'll be showing you. But I can share you some blogs where you can have a walkthrough step by step they have given, where you
Okay.
can have a look into it.
Okay. Yeah, we are using the DRF for that.
DRF needs are separate two servers. Okay,
Okay.
but there are some documentation you can have a walk through it. And please note one thing, which is a common, what to say, not a misunderstanding, but because you're all new to this. See, in one project there are segregation of duties, SODs. SOD means the SDMM guy will do their own work, the master data team will do their own work, and the TM guy will do their own work. It's not that you will be doing end to end. So when I say about master data, like for example, material master, creation of plant, creation of shipping point, creation of storage location, purchasing of purchasing group, company code is not your responsibility. Okay, and if you have a master data team, the MD team, okay, so their responsibility is to ensure that the replication happens successfully. That is number one. Number two, there are certain activities which we need to do from our end as part of the validation process in TM, where you need to enrich the data once the data is sent across to TM. That is your responsibility as a TM consultant. Okay. Like for example, you will not be responsible for creating a sales order, purchase order. That should be the responsibility of the logistics team. But once these orders or deliveries are created, how TM progresses, that is your responsibility. Okay.
Virendra, I have a question. So, will you help with the software installation? So, we need to practice the session, right? The moment the once the session ends, we need to practice, right? So, will you help with the software installation? And can you install the software on company laptop or personal laptop?
So that's up to you. Whether you want to go for company laptop or so we'll provide the SAP GUI details and all. Fiori access will be given. So all will be practicing in Fiori only. So then
Okay.
it's up to you where you install. That Expertsoft or myself cannot tell that. It's up to you.
Okay, fine.
Virendra,
And
what is
after every training session, you'll get the recorded files. You can have a view of the files to recollect what we covered. You can have a reference of that and you can practice accordingly. So the training file should be given to you. which you can have a look into.
Virendra, this is Meghraj. What is the timeline of this complete course?
See, basically, we try to wrap up. See, again, I am sharing my experience. Okay, there can always be a buffer, but generally, I have seen between 25 to 30 hours, we generally cover the course. Okay, uh, uh, so like the last batch, we completed it around, I think, 22 or 23, or yeah, abruptly like that. So it's around 1.5 to 2 months. But there is no, it's not that there is a hard code stop that after certain hours you cannot do it. Okay, but if you are quite regular in the classes, and if there are not too many interruptions in terms of holidays and all, generally I've seen 1.5 to 2 months with 3 days per week frequency. That means around 6 hours frequency, we generally cover it.
This course we are planning for a weekend, right? I can't do on weekdays. So this is a weekend course, right?
Yes, yes. See, I was not knowing what is it. You may speak with Naveen. We are open to all weekdays and weekends. If it's a weekend, then it's Saturday, Sunday, 2 days. So the frequency still remains the same. Whether it's weekdays
Yes,
or
Virendra, this batch will be like weekend batch only. Okay, Saturday and Sunday same time we gonna follow.
okay. So that will remain the same.
Okay, 2 hours, Saturday and Sundays, 4 hours
See, 4
every week.
hours, or we can start initially with 1.5 hours, because what I have seen, 2 hour sessions initially, people may, because it's a new thing, they may find it little bit difficult to absorb. So once you tell me, no, we are okay with 2 hours, I will stretch to 2 hours. That's not a problem for me.
Yes, yes. And even Virendra, I'm looking for actually a certification kind of thing. Even my project is moving into S4, and they are looking for a TM to be implemented. I'm talking about maybe from the January onwards. So even this course will help me to get certified, as well as a manager, I can look into the TM side, right? How things are working and everything, right?
See, first of all, certification, as I told you, you'll get the certified materials. You have to do your self-study. You have to do a practice, and then you should appear for the certification after you complete the course. But give a time of 1 month at least before you appear for it. That is number one. Number two, certification is never a mandatory thing. Okay, it's good to have. Okay, but it's not mandatory that you should immediately go for certification. Always try to have more experience in hands-on rather than going for certification, because hands-on experience is going to give us a good job or better person. Okay, so certification you can do anytime. It's not a mandatory thing that it has to be done.
Okay.
So this course duration will be for how many months? Since we are going to cover 3 hours every weekend.
See, if it is 2 days a week, I think it will go to 2 months then.
Okay. And one thing more, Virendra, what is the scope of this TM module in India? Since I hardly see any company going for for TM implementation in India, but overseas definitely yes. But what is the scope?
So in India means, are you looking for the employment opportunities in India, or is it like you are more focused
No,
on doing projects domestic?
no, actually I'm into domestic market only. So that's why I'm asking if I'm adding anything in my portfolio or something I'm learning. So what is the scope? Since you are working into this TM module, you will be going through, the pre-sales kind of things. What's the market? How is the market for this module in India?
So this more module, mainly if you go to different steel industries, mining industries, everywhere adoption is there. As I told you, every client has to move to, whether it's domestic project, international projects. Ultimately, it's your SAP ERP software which has to move to S4HANA team. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's global or domestic in nature. Every client has to move, right? Everyone is moving to S4. And if they have to deploy in S4 and if they have to deploy TM, means the transportation process, they have to move to S4HANA TM. So in India also a lot of big, I'll not name the clients, but at least in the last 2 to 3 years, I've seen a huge involvement or deployment of TM in Indian markets, mainly in different types of established ports, third-party logistics service providers, 3PL, 4PLs. They are adopting SAP TM because they don't have any option. They have to move. And even if you're in domestic market also, maybe the company where you are working may have a subsidiary in outside India also, right? So it's not a like a solution where it is domestic based. It's a global solution. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I will. So today, any other question?
One thing more, since it's an embedded system, there are companies like service provider, logistic companies wherein there is no, S4HANA system. So how companies going for that? Uh, those scenarios also we are going to touch up, or how things will move.
No. Can you come back? I did not understand.
See, I'm asking especially for the companies which go for who are on S4 system only, or standalone they can go for this TM module implementation with other ERPs.
This is a deployment option. You can have multiple variants, but ultimately the journey to S4 has to be there, because anyway you cannot live without S4. Now to make it more simplified, generally we go for the embedded one. You can have options, sidecar also you can have. Okay, but for the purpose of costing, for the purpose of infrastructure saving, for the purpose of simplification, and for the purpose of having less manpower cost, we generally go for embedded. But you can always have the option of all this. When I go into the deployment option, I'll tell you what is actually the prerequisite for, or not a prerequisite, but the reason why we have multiple deployment options. So your question is more on the deployment option. Okay, we'll go into details on this.
Okay.
Okay. So I will quickly, I will
Naveen,
elaborate this
sorry,
one.
Naveen.
Yeah.
Naveen, sorry to disturb. I have a question here.
Yeah.
Since my background is IS retail, so there are different ways of working. Like master data is different in IS retail. So how it will impact from the TM point of view?
There is no impact. As I told you, the source can be anything, whether it's retail, whether it's utility, whether it's your core ECC, means in retail you use article master, here we are using material master. That's the only thing. But whatever you are using there, okay, ultimately all the master data, all the info from the source is ultimately consolidated and comes into TM as a single object, same thing. So it doesn't matter whether you're working in IS retail or whether you're working in ECC. In TM, the process flow does not do any change. Okay, so you can always have a So as I told you, the segregation of duty part, your IS retail consultant will do that part, but as a TM consultant, your focus will be to work on the proceedings from the TM process perspective, right? Because you are the receiver, you are the consumer, you are not the sender.
Okay.
So as a receiver or consumer, ultimately what you receive, you have to process that and then give an output to the sender again. Correct. So it doesn't make any difference from the TM perspective.
Okay. Now.
Virender, this is Nursing here.
Yeah.
Hello. What is the
Yeah.
latest release of SAP Trans TM module?
S4HANA 2022, where we'll cover the course.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll quickly go through the process, but again, I will do it in details once we officially start the classes. So I'll just tell you what is the next course of action before I start this. So the next course is that each one of you have to reach out to Naveen, or Naveen will reach out to you. Okay, they will be, and once you say that yeah, we are okay to start with the batch, because we are planning to start the batch ASAP. You know, there will be a WhatsApp group formed. We'll share our email ID. Everything will be shared to you. Communication, whatever, you know, if you want to have any comments, please provide that. But only those who will be showing the interest will be there as part of the, you know, WhatsApp, and also will be giving you the system access and all once the registration is done. So that is the entire process. Okay. So after the class, please reach out to Naveen so that we can start and plan the classes quickly. Okay. So if you see this process, as I told you, transportation management is a process which is cutting horizontally. Why horizontally? Because we have the vertical pillars. OTC is one pillar, material management is another pillar. Okay. But when we talk about transportation management, it's a horizontal pillar. Horizontal pillar means it cuts across all the main processes. Now, transportation management has to receive a requirement to transport. How will a TM module or a TM person or a TM planner know he has to transport? So you have to give him an input on that, right? So the input to the transportation, the demand, the request to the transportation comes from the source system, which is the ECC system. So that's where the order management is there. When I say ECC system, in ECC you create a sales order, you create a purchase order, you can create an agreement, you can create a stock transport order, you can create an outbound delivery, you can create an inbound delivery. So these are the request documents, and these request documents, when transferred, will create an object in TM called as a freight unit. So this is the object which basically is the technical object, the first object in TM which has the information of transportation relevant for all these orders and delivery. In other words, this is the first technical object which what is a freight unit? Freight unit is the smallest unit of transportation. It is an object which is created automatically once orders or deliveries are transferred to TM. And what is there in the freight unit? In a freight unit, you have three most important conditions: what to transport, where to transport, when to transport. These are the three information available in freight unit. What to transport means the material of the cargo. So in sales order, purchase order, you have material, right? That information is available in freight. Where to transport? Again, in sales order delivery, you have shipping point, ship to party, plant, vendor location. These are all the locations for my freight. Like shipping point is the source location. My supplier location is the source location. Similarly, my ship to party is the destination location. My receiving plant is the destination location. All this information from the source is available in the freight unit, so that my freight unit knows where to transport and what to transport and when to transport. When to transport means I need to know the pickup dates and the delivery dates, because as a transporter I should know when to pick up the goods from the source location, when to pick up the goods from the destination location. Like in any sales order, you have the delivery date. So that delivery date is the you know, the destination location drop date. And in any sales order, you have the loading date. So loading date is the pickup date. So that's why I told you freight unit inherits all the information from the source, and then this technical object is the starting point of the transportation process. It's a request document. It's a TRQ object. Also, it's a not a TRQ object, it's a TOR object, but it's a request document. And the request document is inherited from the order and the delivery which is created in ECC. So the generation of freight unit depends on different factors, like for which shipping condition, for which shipping point, for which delivery type, for which Incoterm you want to build a freight unit. Today you may have 20 different delivery types in the system, but you only want to integrate 5 deliveries with TM. So in that case, you need to make the factors available or integrated, which will indicate that for these 5 delivery types only my freight unit should be created. That is part of the order. So the output of order management is freight. Any questions so far? Clear to everyone? Okay. Now what I will do with the freight unit. So as you know, the ultimate object or abstract of any transportation process is the creation of shipment document. Because unless you create a shipment document, your transportation cannot start or cannot originate, right? So planning is the process based on which your shipment document is created. That means output of planning is my shipment document. Now in TM we'll not use shipment document. In TM we'll use freight order, freight booking. Why both of them? Freight order is the shipment document for mode of transport, road and rail. That means which operates on surface. Freight booking is the shipment document which pertains to mode of transport, ocean or air. So that's why SAP is differentiated based on the mode of transport. So ultimate objective of planning is freight order, freight booking. And when you are doing freight order, freight booking, it takes into account freight unit as an input. It does the planning. So planning means the freight unit will be loaded into a truck and then you perform the planning, and the planning will result in the creation of your freight order, freight book. Now there are two things you need to understand what I told you in the map. One is a freight unit. That means my input to my planning is freight unit and my input to my planning is a resource. As I told you, we need a resource, right? Or else how will you move the transport? Like my truck is a resource, my vessel is a resource, my flight is a resource. So the combo of freight unit and the resource along with the capacity of the resource, it's important to know the capacity. And based on this, the planning will select the best optimal capacity of the resource and will create a freight order, freight. Because suppose my freight unit weight is 1000 tons. You cannot have a resource of 500 tons, right? You need to select a proper resource which is equivalent to 1000 tons or greater than that. So in that case, the planning is the most critical. And how you do planning? Planning is done using a planning tool called as an optimizer. So there is a planning tool available in TM which is called as an optimizer. That optimizer will select the freight unit, will select the best available resource and will create a freight order, freight. But there are some lot of other features done by planning. We'll go into details of that. Like for example, planning will also select which is the best carrier available. Planning will also select which is the most cheapest mode of transport. Planning will also select, like for example, you are transporting dangerous with non-dangerous. You cannot put them into one truck, right? So there are certain incompatibilities also planning can look into. So that's why there are two types of planning: manual planning, automatic planning. Manual planning is an interactive planning where the planner will just drag and drop the freight unit to a truck. Manually he can do it. But when I go for automatic planning, it's an engine. Automatic planning is an engine. Optimizer is an engine. That optimizer will select the most available truck resource automatically from the freight unit and will create the freight order, freight. So that's all the planning about. Again, I tell you, freight order, freight booking is my shipment document. So you don't need to again separately create a shipment document, which you used to do earlier. Now it's only one model, that is freight order, freight booking. Any questions so far?
Can multiple freight order or freight booking will be created against freight unit? Like for example, in your case, 1000 is the allowed one, but in one booking, it is only for the 500. So can it be created for 500, 502 freight orders?
Yes. So I give you one example here so that you can understand. Sorry, not this one. Yes. So if you see here, this is a standard shipment process where my shipper, my source is at Cologne and my destination is at Chicago. This is a scenario actually we will model or replicate in the system, where you see it is going through multiple stages. My stage one is from Cologne to Bremen port, where we'll move by truck. From Bremen port to New York port will move by vessel. From New York port to Chicago will move by truck. So you see there are 3 stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So we'll individually plan each stage. That means stage 1, because it's a truck, we'll create a freight order. Stage 2, it will be created a freight booking. Stage 3, it will be created a freight order. So stage wise planning is required. We call it as a multimodal transport because here multiple mode of transport has been deployed. And this truck which you are planning to move from Cologne to Bremen, it can put either one freight unit or based on the resource capacity. If it's a LTL, less than truckload, you can combine multiple freight units also. That means based on the capacity, one or n freight units can be loaded into a truck. So one truck is equal to one freight order. One vessel is equal to one freight booking. One truck is one freight order. But within the freight order, you have to load the product, right? That product is a freight unit.
Yes.
So you can have multiple freight units into one truck based on the capacity. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions so far? Now, as I told you, as part of the planning, you can also do an automatic carrier selection. So automatically the carrier selection can also be done. So if you want to have an automatic carrier selection done, you can use that process also. Again, that setup is completely dependent on how you are setting up the transportation network for the optimizer. This is the master data. So if a master data setup is such that carrier should be determined automatically, then once you do the planning in the freight order freight booking, my carrier will also be automatically assigned. So who is a carrier? My carrier is the LSP who will actually do the physical transportation. Because see, just creating a shipment document will not help, right? Who will drive the shipment document? Who will drive the truck? Who will drive the vessel? So you need a logistics service provider or a forwarding agent or a carrier who will do the physical pickup and physical delivery. That is the role of a carrier. Like for example, Maersk can do the act as a carrier. Or you talk about DHL can act as a carrier. So in case you are doing automatic planning, carrier will be updated here, and you have always an option to replace it manually also. Suppose you wanted DHL but system proposed FedEx, you can update or replace FedEx with DHL also. So this is all part of the planning process. Any question?
One thing, Virender, Prashant this side. So, since in LETRA, the source of for transportation module was delivery. Here, in this case, as per the diagram for the creation of freight unit, the source will be sales order, purchase order, or scheduling agreement, or delivery. Okay.
It can be
So
both or it can be one. But
it can be.
recommendation is delivery. You can also have from order. It's suppose both order based planning and delivery based planning.
Okay, so just below the freight unit, it's planning and optimization. So it's a kind of any particular small tool, or there is a transaction wherein planning can be done in this
Yes.
transportation.
So yes, so this is my server. So once you go there, I'll go and explain you later on how to launch it. So this is a transaction to launch my Fiori app. You enter user ID, password. I'll go into these details later on, but just to answer your question, I'm telling you, when you go to planning, you go to cockpit. As I told you, this is the planning tool, right? You go here. So system will ask you to enter some profiles because there can be 10,000 freight units. So you have to do a filtering of the freight units. Now you see what you see here. You see all the freight units, right? And below, if you see the trucks which are available. Now, suppose you want to do the planning, you can just select this freight unit. You can select this truck and you can click on assign. Assign means you are assigning the freight unit to the truck. So automatically you'll see freight order, freight booking will be created. See, freight unit assigned. That means freight order will be created.
Okay.
Okay.
This is one of the drawback of LETRA, wherein there was no planning, and even the client
Yes,
was
no
asking
planning.
for some
Yes.
some kind of planning tool also. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So this is the manual planning. I told you there are two types of planning. This is manual. Manual means you're selecting. But if you click on optimizer, optimizer means you don't have to select a resource. The system, the engine will automatically check the availability of the best available resource and will do the plan. And here you can see all the shipment documents which is created. Okay. So I'll come to this. Means this is that's what I was telling you. And now, suppose you have created a freight order. The next part is the execution part. Now what happens? Many client wants to know, okay, it's good, you have picked up the goods, I want to have an overview of my shipment process. Like you place an order in Amazon. Once you get a shipment ID, you always try to log into the shipment ID and check what is the status of your shipment. So for that, you have this different status tab. So if you go here, this is a status tab where you can see what is the status of your entire shipment. That is called as the execution part. You can see whether your departure happened, loading happened, unloading happened. Now all these things gets updated. You can also do it manually. So if you see there are execution status, you can say whether my shipment is ready for execution, whether my shipment has already executed, is in the part of execution, whether checkout happened, departure happened, loading happened, unloading happened. Accordingly, the updation of status will give an overview. Okay. You can also have a status on the subcontracting, whether you have a carrier assigned, whether invoicing is done, whether load planning is done, whether the document is archived, whether you have created a manifest document. These are all different documents also we need to create. Okay, output. Whether if you have an integration with GTS, whether the customs have passed the execution. So in other words, the execution part is the third pillar, where you have an overall view of how much of that means to give a status visibility to your planner or to a customer. Sometimes what happens in case there are any delays in meeting the delivery dates, you can through the execution part you can actually inform the customer. Okay, clear to everyone? And the last part is the charge management. What charge management? So if you again go here, you will see here that there is, as I told you, you have a carrier, right? You have a carrier. Now this carrier, why they will come and do the service unless they know how much you pay them? So the payment to the carrier has to be ascertained in the document itself. So you have a charges tab, and here you know that this is the amount I need to pay to the carrier for their transportation service. And how does this amount come? This amount comes if I click on this show hide details. I can see that there is an agreement. Right now for this data there is no agreement, but if you have an agreement, automatically the charge calculation will be done automatically. I have added this manually. See, this is manual. So this manual means I've added this charge type manually. But if you have an agreement with this carrier, automatically the charge calculation will be filled up. That means this is the charge I need to pay to the carrier. So now going into the, because once the carrier makes the goods available to the customer location, you need to pay the carrier. So how much of amount I need to pay to the carrier, that is already part of the freight order freight booking. Now there is a document called as a settlement document as part of the charge management. So in the ECC we used to create a shipment cost document. So in TM we'll not create a shipment cost document, we'll create a draft invoicing document called as a settlement. So settlement document will be created from a freight order. It will pull the charges from the freight order and you need to post it. Once you post this freight settlement, automatically service purchase order, service entry sheet will be created. Now why these two objects are required? Because you know in normal ECC it's a three-way match, right? That means if you have to do an invoicing to a carrier, the finance, the payable guy, we need to have a reference of how much he will going to pay to the carrier. That reference document is the purchase order and the service entry sheet. So service purchase order is a purchase order where the detailed level of services are provided. Service entry sheet is the detailed level of services which the carrier has provided. All will be documented, and all this information will come from the freight settlement. So unless these two objects are created, the invoicing cannot be done. So these two are acting as a cross check to the invoicing. And here you can also see to which cost center my cost will be determined, which a GL account, my cost will be posted. All things can be seen, because ultimately the finance guy need to post the cost somewhere for reconciliation, right? So that's why always note that TM does not do any account determination. TM just passes the cost, and the entire cost distribution will happen in ECC only. So this is the entire flow. Once you pay the carrier, the responsibility, the flow ends. Clear to everyone?
One thing more, so after going this particular course of this 2 months, I will be in a position to go for implementation all alone, or it will be like needed guidance under a person. How it will, how your teaching will be structured.
See, it's not about my teaching. It depends on your input and availability also. Like for example, if we recollect the old earlier days when we started with SDM. So from day one, ideally you should be deployed into a project, but doing end to end entirely from day one, that has never been a possible in SAP. Okay, because you need to understand different configuration, but at least the overall framework, what needs to be done, where needs to be done, you'll get an idea on that. You can also work in a project, because anyway after learning we all go into projects only, and project learning is the base learning you have. But just now how you have learned SDMM, the same course follows for TM also. It depends how you have learned and how much you have picked up and how much you have practiced. And using, like for example, going alone in an implementation means, see, always in any implementation you will not be alone. You cannot be alone, right? There will be 4 or 5 people or 6 people there. So it's more of a collaborative or teamwork approach you need to adopt there. But whoever is learning new modules, is the same thing. It's not only about TM. I'll give my best to make you fit, means to make you able for the implementation and all, because everything will be doing in the configuration only. But it depends on your effort also to learn the subject. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Virendra, is it required to know the EWM for the TM?
Sorry, more than?
No. Is it required to know the EWM model as well to
No.
learn the TM model?
No. See, whatever, as I told you, whatever integrations you do with any module, okay, there has to be a person or a consultant from the other side. Just think about ECC. You are a SD consultant. If you are integrating with any, like for example, intercompany processes, you need a MM consultant. You are not expected to perform the work of MM consultant or FI consultant or CO consultant, right? Similarly, if you are integrating with any warehouse, you need a WM or EWM consultant. So you don't need to know the other modules. Your focus will be to learn your own module. That's it.
Yeah. Why my question is because lots of people are saying yard logistics in TM. Some people are saying yard logistics in EWM. So that is the confusion point.
Yard logistics basically is part of EWM, but you know, some of the objects in yard logistics gets triggered from TM also. You don't need to know yard logistics. Yard logistics is a different subcomponent of, you know, it's a different module. Okay.
So it is not part of the TM or EWM. It is a separate one.
Yeah, it's a separate module. It's an add-on. It's an add-on in S4.
Okay.
And if you want to
Are you
integrate TM with
covering
yard
any
logistics,
introductory? Are you covering any introductory session for that?
for yard logistics, no. Yard logistics, because yard logistics, hardly anyone has been using it. It's not a very, what to say, a go-to-market solution. As of now, SAP is working on that. Okay. So, just one triggering point comes from TM, which triggers YL. But I think, see, what my advice will be, there are so many modules which SAP is launching every day. Okay. Better to just stick to one module where you have a good understanding. Because if you try to know everything in day one, you'll be confused. Okay. Then the core subject gets a hit. So yard management or yard logistics is part of the component of EWM. One of the triggering comes from TM, may come from TM, where they create some yard objects within the yard logistics. But you don't need a yard management for any TM service. You may we can always use some other custom part or interfaces to get an update from yard logistics.
So loading and unloading comes into the yard logistics, or it is with a different
Loading
process?
and unloading, as I showed you, you can play around with the execution status, or you can also develop an interface if unloading is done from the site logistics. So if you have a core site logistics where the loading unloading quantities information needs to be fed into TM, you need to develop an interface. Unless you have the proper license to implement yard management or yard logistics, that can also be done. So you have both the options. Use
Okay.
interface or use yard logistics.
Okay. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other question? Any other thing? Okay, then. So we'll go a little bit more details. So the first 1 or 2 days we'll little bit dwell into the theoretical part, because it is important to know a background of the transportation management system. And also we will discuss during these first 2 days the deployment options and also the different integration architecture what SAP TM basically can have. Okay, so these are the first two contents we'll discuss in the first 2 days. So it will be more of a little bit of a theoretical part, because unless I explain you the background, the differences between Elytra and TM and all those stuff, it will clear you a lot of your doubts why transportation management is the the to be solution for any transportation management processes in SAP. Okay, so, and I will go also a little bit more details into what we discussed on the processes, because unless you are clear about the processes, it will sometimes it may create a lot of confusion how to go about with any process we implement in TM. Okay, so that is the approach we should take. Okay, now I will quickly go through this flow again, but can anyone just summarize what did you understand? Because yesterday I explained this one. So I would like to have your understanding. What did you understand from this particular slide, which I explained it yesterday? Anyone?
So to start with, the source of the this transportation module will be the sales order, purchase order, and delivery. Wherein with the help of this transition, we are going to create a freight unit, wherein the next step will be the planning, and whosoever the logistic provider will be available, then this freight order and freight booking transition will happen. And again, going further with the freight settlement part, that will be covered in charge and settlement. So the small gist, this was we discussed yesterday.
Yeah. Anyone else who wants to add?
The planning will be done by optimizer, and for optimizers working, we are going to utilize the resource capacities and the transportation network. And as you said, right, this finance part, once after the file settlement document is created, it will be taken care in ECC. Remaining all other things like planning, order planning, execution, everything will happen in SAP TM system.
Yes. So basically what happens here, that so there are two parts to any type of transportation process. Okay, so one part is when we are working in the embedded concept. Now many may ask you why we work on embedded. Okay, and what was the previous variant of embedded? That is very important to understand. So I'll just quickly go through this before I go into the process flow. That is the deployment option. Now, if you see this slide, or rather, if I open the system, so suppose this is my new 2022 system. Now, when I go into 2022 system, I click on my user ID, I click on my password, and when I do that, you will see that there are certain transactions. So if I click on logistics, and when I expand this, you'll see I have transportation management applications, as well as I have applications of material management, sales and distribution, etc. So that means in the same server, in the same instance, in the same client, you are accessing both the ECC core module as well as your transportation module. That means the transportation module is in the same instance as that of the core SDMM module. So what happens here? That means both are enriched, both are basically using the same S4HANA DB. So that's what we call it as a embedded. So you see out of the various deployment options. So deployment means how your architecture will look like. So what is the landscape of your SAP TM? Whether TM is a separate standalone server, or is whether TM is in the same server as your core ECC. So that's the reason why we call it as an embedded. Embedded, that means it's in the same instance. So you see other S4 application means your core logistics, and this is the TM. And both are being using the same S4HANA DB. That's why it is called as a embedded concept. In contrast to this, we have the second option where you see a line is passing through. Line is passing through it means you have two different boxes. And when we'll have two different boxes, that means your core ECC is in one box, which is in S4HANA. The SAP TM is another box, which is also in S4. And because both the boxes are different, it has to be separated by a middleware. So what is a middleware? Middleware is like a gateway. It is basically a separate hardware or a separate module which we generally use in the form of PI or PO, process integration module. Through this process integration modules, data is transferred from the source to the receiver and from the receiver to the source. So that means they cannot basically use the same S4HANA. They have to be separated. That's why it is called as a sidecar version. So that means you will have two different servers, two different instances, two different clients when data is sent and received accordingly. Now both has its advantage and disadvantage. The main disadvantage of this content is because you have a middleware in between. When data is transferred, like master data or transaction data, in that case you need a monitoring device, which is the PIPO. And because you need a monitoring device, because you need to monitor the messages, because maybe the message processed from here is not successful here. In that case, what will happen? The necessary transaction or master data will not be processed here. Vice versa is also true. That means if you are processing any transaction here, if there's any failure in the middleware, data will not be available in the source. Secondly, there is a licensing cost involved here. Yeah, any type of business has to pay an additional licensing cost in case it is a sidecar version. Third, you need a constantly a separate resource, a monitoring team to monitor the failures, because PIPO require a completely a separate skill set. So that means you are introducing an additional cost on the project, additional cost on the resources. The fourth disadvantage of this is because the master data and transaction data have to be routed through the gateway, so you have to activate some web services, and sometimes monitoring web service, activation web service, sometimes it's a easy activity. I don't say it's very it's tough, but still the activation of the web services and monitoring and everything do take some time in order to achieve that. And in case these are all synchronous activities, so sometimes if the PIPO is down due to some reason, the message transfer will fail. So you need to basically dedicate a lot of time to monitor this. But you may ask me then why SAP has provisioned this. See, SAP has provisioned this because based on the deployment or based on the implementation timeline. For example, you are upgrading or migrating your current SAP system to S4, but your main timeline is suppose 31st of July, but the implementation or deployment timeline of TM is different. They may be in October, December. That means you don't want to have the you don't want to combine the entire functioning operational timeline of your TM with S4. You want to keep it separate. Or maybe today you are rolling out the implementation in one country for only for S4. You don't want to do it for TM. So that will also give you an advantage if you completely separate out in two different boxes. Although both are in S4, but the operational way, how your particular objective of how to implement TM is not entirely dependent on how you are going to migrate and upgrade your S4 system. So that's why it is kept different. Okay, any questions so far?
Generally, which system client prefers? Is it embedded one or it is side by side?
I'm not able to hear you, please. Can you?
Generally, which system in market generally client use? Is it a side by side or embedded one?
See, there is no best practice idea for this. Already before you go into a project, already SAP and the client have an agreement what they want to go with. But the current or the recent or the best means SAP is future or the proposed roadmap is to go for embedded, because in embedded you don't have this structure. So you don't have to spend too much time on seeing whether your master data and transaction data is transferred, because it is in the same system. The methodology is more simple. You don't have to spend extra money to buy the license of the middleware. So that's why SAP has come about from the sidecar to the embedded version. So embedded version is a go-to version. SAP always recommends this now. So again, but it depends from client to client, project to project. But what I have seen now, most of the clients are going for the option one because it is more simplified.
But for option one, hardware requirement will be also high.
In both of the cases, hardware option is S4. S4HANA, S4HANA, S4. But here the installation cost, maintenance cost, operational cost is much more as compared to one. Maintaining two different systems always creates a more burden than maintaining one system.
Virender, since you said first of the option is the embedded system, but
Yes.
when we explore or look for option two, what can be the scenarios wherein the company can go for option two?
There is no difference in scenario which differentiates this, as I told you. It completely depends on what is the roadmap they are planning. They also want to see the maturity and the implementation and the overall global rollout plan which decides this. So if the rollout plan, because see, both are TM system, both are core ERP. Every system uses purchase order, sales order, TM processes is the same. There's no difference actually. Only thing here is that there is one additional object which gets created. That is the only difference. I'll show you the differences between embedded. There is only one technical object which gets created, but that object is a redundant object in S4. That's why they have removed it.
So,
But that is
just
not the reason why generally you go for this. It is more on the purpose of the roadmap, what you perceive for global solution when it is getting rolled out.
okay. So, since now the system has given it as an option of embedded system, so let's say at present, at the time of implementation go live, company doesn't go for this transportation module. Still, it's embedded, and they can go for in future as a license part and as a embedded system. They can use it in future also. So it's a bit confusing for me. I don't know about other audiences whether they everyone understood this or not. It's still for me it's a bit confusing. Do we really go for in terms of rollout also, or it's a deployment process has been given from since it's being used since long. So as a part of deployment, still it exists, but nowadays it's a part of embedded system. So it's a kind of licensing part only.
Licensing part is one of the options, because if you are going for this, you get some components available which is free, but in order to get the entire benefit of TM, you have to go for advanced license, for which you have to pay money. That is not the reason. See, there are two licenses in S4: basic license, advanced license. In basic license, if you are getting the basic license, you get a very limited features of SAP TM with free of cost. But if you want to enjoy the full benefit of TM, then you go for the advanced license. Okay. And for advanced license, you have to pay money. And as an implementation team, your responsibility when you get launched when you get introduced in the project, this part is already decided, more or less. Because when the pre-selling concept starts in SAP, okay, SAP basically prepares a bill of material. SAP already has a discussion with business about the licenses and all, and accordingly already a decision is taken whether I go for a S4 or non embedded or sidecar. That is number one. That happens in every project. As an implementation partner, if you are included in the pre-selling phase, you can just give a proposal, but ultimately it's an SAP's agreement with the client who already decides on this. Secondly, what you are saying, that even if I go for an implementation project, if I go for an embedded, you can have an option where you can switch off the TM integration with S4. So that means you can go with the ECC, go live, and TM you can also activate it later on. That can also be a possibility in S4. And third, nowadays, as I told you, simplification is the order of the day. Okay, so you need to have a simplified solution. This solution, what we have, as I told you, with extra server, with extra middleware, always cost is one factor, as I told you. And secondly, there is always so much of messages moving to and fro from one sender to receiver, receiver to sender. That's why client wanted, where I want to have one solution where such type of monitoring, transferring data from sender, receiver may be reduced. That's why SAP came up with this approach. So I did not really understand the confusion part, what you are saying. Maybe if I explained you now.
Then,
Okay,
in
Virender.
case
Okay.
of the industry like retail, there are lots of transactions happening per day, like 1 lakh or 2 lakh transactions per day.
Your
So,
voice is coming a little bit differently. What about the others, or am I? Is it only for me?
Coming not okay.
Yeah, I cannot actually hear you. Are you speaking
is
with
it?
in the mic, or you're outside or somewhere?
No, I'm speaking in the headphone. Might be there is issue with the headphone.
Your voice is breaking completely, actually. If you can just log out and log in again, or
Okay,
that
let
will be.
me log in from the other system.
Yeah,
But
please log in again.
yeah,
Yeah. What about the others? Any other questions?
Hello, Virender. I have a question. Which version do you explaining? This version SAP, the current SAP version
This is S4 HANA 2022,
S4
which
HANA.
is the latest version. S4 HANA 2022.
Okay.
Okay. Now I go into the third option. So what does the third option tell me? The third option tell me, again, it's a variant of the sidecar. This is also a sidecar, because you see two separate boxes, two separate instances. You have a middleware, but here you have the ECC structure, you have the TM structure, but ECC has not migrated or upgraded to S4. It is still in the old ECC 6.0 service pack 8. But TM You have taken the new license, so client decided, okay, I will move directly S4 in TM. But ECC, I need another 1 or 2 years. The reason may be because the complexity is too much. Maybe you have got around more than 2000 developments. Maybe your maturity level to move to S4 is still not there. Maybe the assessment has still not been done. Maybe as a business, you have not decided which processes should move to S4. Because what happens, I tell you, there are so many companies who have taken license in the early 90s, where they have, they have been following this process for all these years, right? So simplification have never been thought of. So if that's why before you go for S4HANA, there is a pre-bid study which happens. Okay, in the pre-bid or the discovery stage, basically the clients, the integration partners do try to give them an assessment that, okay, out of these 2000 processes, you need, maybe you may delete around 500 more processes, because this is a standard one what we have in ECC. So that means the client is still in an evaluation phase. So for that reason, they have still not migrated to S4. But okay, now, but my client requires, no, I need TM solution. Because I did not have TM solution for such a long time. So I would like to migrate directly into S4. So that's why you have this scenario. But again, it's a sidecar. You need a PI, but your ECC is the core ECC 6.0, and your TM is the latest version 2022. So this is the third deployment option. Any other question? Any query from anyone?
Hello, I am audible, Naveen. Sorry,
Yes.
Virendra.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So my question was, if there are lots of transaction in between two systems, like for the side by side as well as the embedded one, which system is mostly preferred by client? Like in retail, there are lakhs of transaction happening daily. So is it a burden case for the embedded one, or is it okay to run the embedded one for such huge kind of data?
So the volume of data does not differentiate between S4 and this sidecar, embedded and sidecar. Volume basically decides on your memory consumption, service, work processes, what you are having as part of your software installation. What is the memory capacity you have bought in? That will decide the volume. So volume is not impacted by whether you are going for S4 embedded or sidecar.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Any more question on the first three deployment options? Please ask, because I'm not going to come back on this slide again. So if you have anything still not clear, let me know. Did all of you understand the difference between sidecar and embedded? Anyone who did not understand?
So in case, one more question. Sorry, Virendra, one more question. So in case of if in future client wants to add one more uh, process like SAP EWM, then is it okay to add into the embedded one? Because again, it will increase the load on the system.
Yes, it is okay.
Because the
Because
third one is the which it is showing all the models in side by side, but not in embedded one.
it is always, see, you don't have to buy a separate server. If you're going for embedded also, you see EWM is also there.
Okay, okay.
See, in terms of performances, it doesn't mean you'll change the entire deployment. That is not the objective of any data complexity and volume. So if you have to handle data complexity and volume, there are many ways. Okay, as I told you, that is more of your memory and how much work processes you are initiating. And in order to improve the performance also, SAP has given a lot of notes, lot of alternate options are available based on which you can.
Okay.
So you don't need to change the deployment option to achieve this issue, or to eradicate this issue. Because today, and one more thing I tell you, basically when SAP provides you the, can someone go on mute please? I think, I don't know, some background noise is coming. Yeah, thanks. So, and one more thing, I don't know how much of you guys have been involved into the complete pre-solution, selling and implementing and the delivery part. Okay, because I work as a global architect and I've been working means for the last 12-13 years following the same approach, where I've always been involved from the pre-selling also. So what happens when SAP, when the client decides that I'm going to have SAP as a product, it is duty bound from the client side to share the volume of data they are going to use. And accordingly, SAP proposes what type of infrastructure upgrade you have. So there is a separate team of SAP, which is the global software solution team, who basically, have a lot of sessions with the, the infrastructure team of current client to understand the volume of the data, and accordingly only the BOMs and all the proposals come in. It's not that after you get the system, after you are deployed into a project, you come to know my volume of shipment has increased. No, that is not the way. Already all this info is shared with SAP, and then only the SAP provides, okay, you need this installation, because first of all you need to have a server in place, installation in place, components in place, then only the the development or the delivery part starts, right? So that already is taken care in the initial days. Okay, clear to everyone?
Yes, yes.
Okay, now the reversal of process 3 is process 5. So process 5 means ERP is in S4, but TM is in the old version. That means what happened? Like TM initially started as a sidecar, right? The older version of TM was in TM. I think I started my career with TM 8.0, where you see, where when I see the screen now, I have some screenshots of TM 8.0, where it's a hell and heaven difference. Okay, so system wise, SAP TM was not in S4HANA, it is in TM any database, but client has now upgraded the code ECC into S4. So you can have also this option. They may decide, okay, let me first stabilize the ECC part, then only I go for the migration or upgradation of TM to S4. So this is another path which you can follow, or not follow, rather this can be another scenario which you can have. And the initial version, when we started with TM implementation, always it was sidecar. So when I started my career, I always used to have this system where we have this ECC in non-S4, TM non-S4. Right now in non-S4, the latest version is 9.6. After 9.6, SAP is not doing any other upgrade or any other version introduction in the landscape. So if you're working on sidecar, the latest and the last version of TM is 9.6. But if you're working on S4, right now it is 2022. So this was the one which I started my career with. And at that time, the first project which I worked on, it was not only TM. In one server, they had EWM, TM, and event management, which we call it as the SCE solution, supply chain execution platform. In one server, we used to have all the three applications. And ECC was anyway non-S4, so it is separate. And then we used to build a bridge by using the middleware. Okay. So any question on the deployment part?
Yes.
So there are so many students, please respond. If something is not clear to you, you have to let me know now, because I'm not going to come back again on this. Okay. So it's a yes for everyone, right?
Yes,
Yes,
Virendra.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Now I will just refresh our memories with the flow again. Now you see there are two flows. One flow is the embedded part and another flow is the sidecar, because as I told you, we have the sidecar also, right? Let us go into the sidecar first. See, the only difference, if you go into this sidecar with embedded, see what we are doing directly from the order delivery, we are building the freight unit. In sidecar, the only difference was from order delivery, they used to create an additional object called as a delivery based requirement or order based requirement. So if you want to integrate TM from order, then they used to create an order based requirement and then they used to create a freight unit. So an additional object was there. If you would like to integrate TM with delivery, then they used to create a delivery based requirement object. From delivery, automatically the freight unit is to create. That means the freight unit was linked to delivery or order based. Even in some projects I have seen in the earlier days where they used to integrate both order and delivery based. So when you open order based, you will see same freight unit number as the delivery based freight unit. So these were the two objects which was created in TM in the sidecar. And what SAP thought, these were also the request objects, because my order delivery is, if you remember yesterday I used the word request because they are the requester. Same information with transportation relevant info led to the creation of these two objects. So these two objects are the replica of the ECC objects, not the entire ECC, but only transport relevant info is available in this, but they are replica. So because it is a replica of these two objects, so these two were considered as a redundant. So that's why SAP has removed those objects and are directly creating the freight. That is the only difference between sidecar and embedded. Rest part remains the same, that once the freight unit is created, you will do the planning. The planning will use the capacities of your resource. The planning will use the master data of your TM. It will do the planning so that my shipment document will be created. Once my shipment document is created, you can assign a carrier, because ultimately a forwarding agent or LSP will drive the truck from the source to destination. So once the carrier is selected and assigned, there is a charge calculation done here. Once the charge calculation done here, the freight order, freight booking, then you can do a settlement process. And once the settlement is done, you can now proceed to pay the carrier. For that, a reference document is needed, which is the purchase order or service entry sheet. So this is the same process. There is no difference. The only thing what SAP done is that they have made it more simplified by keeping it in the form of this one. Okay.
Virender, what is optimization?
Optimization basically means, as I told you, if you remember yesterday, there was a planning tool, right? So the planning tool in the back end uses an engine which is called as an optimizer engine. The objective of optimizer engine is to plan.
Okay. So we need to install it separately, executable separately, or included in S4HANA environment.
It is part of TM application, but you have to give an installation operation guide to the basis team. By looking at that, they have to install it, but it is within the landscape of TM. That is number one. Number two, if you want to use the optimizer, you have to buy for an advanced license. With the basic license, you don't get optimizer. So if you want to have all the features of planning, automatic planning, then you have to go for the advanced license.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Virendra, one question from my side for the side by side. So for creating the additional document, do we need to configure more activities in S4? Is it like that? Or system will automatically create it without any configuration?
Can you tell me again which one you're saying?
In side by side scenario, just go to the next slide, please. There are additional documents getting created like OTR and DTR. So
Yes.
for the creation of OTR and DTR, do we need to maintain some more configuration into S4 system?
Yes. We
Okay.
need to do configurations in the TM system because these two objects are TM objects. So this is there needs a document type because every business object in SAP needs a document type, right? Because
Correct.
it's a document. So you have to configure the document.
Okay. 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 So this is again the additional activity for the side by side.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Virendra.
And the main advantage of simplification is, as I told you, because you are not using the middleware. So the creation, availability of transaction master data is synchronous. That is the most advantageous point you have when you're going for an embedded. Because means in the current TM product is evolving, still it is evolving. Okay, so there had been a lot of issues we used to face after implementation that okay, my master data, if I want to create new, it is not available in production in the TM. Or my transaction later, I created a delivery, but the delivery updates have not reached my TM. Or if TM has made some changes, it is not updating my ECC. Lot of such scenarios are there, and it is sometimes very difficult to every time monitor message, find the root cause and all those things. Okay, because you have to go into the into the PI system, and sometimes if the web services are down, if the RFCs are not working, that creates a huge issue. Then you have to reprocess the messages again manually. Okay, or you can schedule some batch job, but all such disadvantages were there, and many clients have complained on that. And also
Agreed with Virendra. Yes, currently we are facing those kind of issue in my current project. Correct. Yes.
And also, there is always one strategy adopted from the PI that after 30 days or 60 days, the messages has to be removed, or else too much of message content in the PI server may impact the performance. Now, sometimes what happened that suppose you have removed the messages after 30 days as per the retention policy, but you need to analyze that data and you don't get that data because the message is not there. So such type of things also come up. What you will do then? So in order to get rid of all this, SAP has come up with a very simplified approach, which is the embedded part. Now, there are a few things I need to tell you that what are the two types of, when you create a freight unit, I told you yesterday that freight unit is the output of order or delivery. Now, if you are planning to create a freight unit from order, it is called as a order-based planning. If you are planning to create a freight unit from delivery, it is called as a delivery based. Now, most of the time when you go to any workshop, it is also possible that you create your freight that you activate both order and delivery based. That means you will activate your TM integration both at an order level as well as at the delivery level. If that happens, then the freight unit is automatically, the freight unit number will be the same, and you'll see in the document flow of both order and delivery. Okay, so in this case, so if I quickly show you what I mean by this freight unit automatic. See, I'm creating a sales order now. VA01. I hope all of you know this transaction. Suppose I am going into this order type and I want to create a sales order. I already have an existing data, for example, this one, so that I don't need to create my sales order from scratch. Okay. Now I just give a name and I click on an incompletion log. So to ensure that all data has been pre-filled. And when I click on this, I click on the save button. So sales order is saved. Now if I go into the change display, you will see a TM status tab comes. So this TM status tab tells you that my order is integrated with my TM. How do you know? If I go to document flow, I'll see a freight unit is created automatically. So that means my order is integrated with TM. See, this 165 is the number. Now from here, if you create a delivery, I click on save. If I go on change or display, you'll see a TM status tab. And in the TM status tab, if you go there, you'll see, if I go to document flow, you'll see freight rate 165 as same number. So that means whatever you do as an integration, order based, delivery based, always the same freight unit will be available in the document flow. So my question is, any business will ask you that what will be the, whether you want to go for order based planning, whether you want to go for delivery based planning, which one will be your option? What do you feel? Which one you should propose and why? That is the most important thing.
Delivery base is the best option what I can think of because it has the final quantity based on the availability.
Correct. What about the others? Everyone agree with him?
Yes,
Agreed.
Virendra.
Yes, delivery base should be
But
the best option.
Virendra, at what scenario you are doing OTR based planning?
OTR, no, it's not about OTR, it's order based. OTR is a different object. Don't confuse
Order based
OTR.
planning. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I know. First of all, let's agree. What do you feel? Is it delivery based or order based?
Okay.
Order based means from order you are integrating. Delivery means from delivery you are integrating. That is a major difference.
Okay.
But do you all agree that it is mainly on the order based one? Sorry, delivery based one? So delivery based planning is a recommended approach. Why I tell you? Suppose you have done only at order level. You have created your freight unit. Your freight unit is available in the cockpit for such a long time. Now you may not do the delivery for that order due to certain reason. Unnecessarily, the document will be there in the system. It will load the system. Performance may be impacted. So it is always better to go for delivery. Although order based may give a indicator to the planner that you need to plan yourself for doing the transportation, right? Maybe early warning may go out to the planner that this delivery, this order has been done. Please prepare yourself for the transportation. That can be an indicator. That's the reason why it's more of a forecasting reason that many clients can go for order based. But ultimately, see, your transportation relevance come only once you actually do the physical goods movement, right? So that is more on the delivery based. That is more on the actual based. Because order based is more of a forecasting of the planned quantity. But delivery is actually the actual quantity. And based on the actual quantity, only the carrier who will going to bring the truck will know that this is what I have to transport. So that's why many of the clients go for the, or majority of the clients want to go for the delivery based. I have not seen too much client only going for order based and not delivery based. Clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, next part is the planning part. Now, in the planning, if I go back, yesterday I showed you this cockpit part. I'm again going back here. So when I go to the cockpit, transportation cockpit, and if I click here, planning, cockpit, you will see here there are two ways of planning. One is the manual planning, one is the optimizer planning. Does anyone recollect what is the difference between these two? I told you yesterday.
In the assign selected items, you need to select the vehicle, type of vehicle. And in optimizer, automatically on the availability of the vehicle, it will be assigned.
See, optimizer planning, it is also called as a semi-manual. I still don't, means I little bit always contradict SAP here also. So when we call optimizer, we call this automatic planning. But in one of the sessions which we had, I told them that, okay, you are telling it is an automatic, but ultimately users have to select this, right? Then only it is more of a semi-manual, right? Because when I say automatic means automatically everything should happen, right? So there is a way you can schedule a batch job also. That's another way. But what you have said is right. Anyone who wants to add one more thing? There's one basic difference still it's not there in your answer. Anyone?
It is optimization of the transport activity, like which carrier will we have what kind of load and everything. It will happen automatically in optimizer.
Yes, correct. So basically the objective of optimizer here is it will validate where the correctness of master data. It will validate the optimization achieved by the planning tool. When I say optimization, that means as an optimizing, your main objective is to make sure that whatever you select as a means of transport or whatever you select as a resource is the cheapest one. Because if your transportation is becoming more expensive, what is the use of doing optimization, right? Your ultimate objective fails. So to achieve on that, optimizer always makes sure, suppose I've got 3 means of transport. Now, which means of transport will give me the cheapest cost of transport? All these things optimizer basically can validate, provided you have set up the correct master data. Optimizer can do an automatic carrier selection. That means, for example, if you're transporting from Germany to US, who are the carriers who are available in that network? Who is the cheapest carrier that we can do the transportation with the minimum cost and respecting the delivery time? The optimizer will select that. Optimizer also validates different constraints and cost. Suppose there are certain products which cannot be placed on a higher stack. So that means the proper load planning feature can also be checked by the optimizer. Optimizer can also check the different incompatibilities. Incompatibility means, for example, as I told you that in one truck, suppose you are transporting ice cream with a normal product, you cannot put them in the same truck because they require separate temperature, right? So if I'm doing manual planning, there can always be an issue that I am combining both of these products in the same compartment and transporting, which will not help. But optimizer will check the incompatibilities, and if the two products are not incompatible, they cannot be planned or consolidated in the same truck. So all these different validations, features, activations, master data validations, all these things are done by the optimizer. So that is the reason why many projects go for the optimizers. Because for a planner, if you are doing a manual one by clicking on this, it is not possible everything for all the planners to know everything. He may consolidate by mistake. Then again, he have to deconsolidate. He has to wait for a new truck to come in. Then only he can send. By the time the delivery timeline can get impacted. So that's the difference between manual and automatic planning. But does it mean that optimizer is always the preferred one? The answer is 50-50. Why 50-50? First of all, you need to buy an advanced license for optimizer. Once you buy an advanced license for optimizer, second thing, there is a transaction called as RCC_cast. This transaction you need to run and you need to activate the RFC. So if you go here, there are different applications. For us, it is optimizer, this one. You need to run, you need to have the status active and you need to run a connection test to make sure the RFC is working. If RFC is not working, then your optimizer will not be able to give the output. That is the second constraint. So always a monitoring part is required. Third part is the most the most is the maintenance of master data. Lot of master data is required because it's an it's a master data driven engine. It's an engine. Just as an engine needs a fuel to drive. So for the optimizer, your fuel is your master data. So a lot of master data has to be created. Based on the master data, the output is driven. And sometimes what happens, the planner is not happy maybe with the carrier selection. Then again he will go into that freight order and he will update the carrier to his adaptability. So there is a lot of resistance comes from the planner. As you know, transportation business is something where the entire planning execution deals with the planner. And if the planner has to be honest enough in his dealing, if he is not honest enough, he'll see that every time he is giving the order to the same carrier. That's what the optimizer provides a constraint. So there can be a tussle, a change management required also while you are implementing optimizer. And some of the projects I've seen that in some countries they deploy optimizer where volume of shipment is huge, but for some other countries where volume of optimizer is not huge, they don't use optimizer. They are very happy with the manual process. So both the pros and cons are there, and accordingly you need to discuss and decide what business wants. And another part what I tell you is it is very difficult to analyze the error log. So there is a transaction called as RCC_log. So in case optimizer is failing to plan, it will give some messages here. Okay, and if you want to see the message, you can go here, extras, you can display the log file, and in the log file in the backend is C++ language, and it is very difficult to understand the root cause. This is how the simulation happens. In this simulation, you need to find out what went wrong. This is the log file, or you can directly go into this message log where it can tell you what went wrong. Like for example, here the message failed because no vehicle was passed to the optimizer. But this one liner is very difficult to solve the problem for the new beginners. You can click on this question mark, but sometimes it takes a lot of time to solve this. So optimizer resolution is another constraint. And if you go into this I column, it's not there. Anyway, you can see what master data has been passed. So in short, both the usage of optimizer has benefits, pros and cons. Okay. Any other question from anyone? Clear to everyone? Two types of planning.
No.
Okay. Next comes the execution part. So what is execution? As I told you, execution part is in order to have a visibility of your shipment. Today you are running the shipment process, but clients, customers, and even the planner wants to have a visibility of the shipment. Why? Because suppose the carrier has come and picked up the goods, but you would like to monitor the status of your shipment. That's where the execution piece comes up. So you can use other modules also in addition to TM to do the execution. So if you see here in the architecture slide, I've used one component called as the EM. EM is the event management module. So this event management module is that module which does the tracking and tracing of your shipment. So does it mean I always need EM? No. You can also track and trace using TM, but the real-time visibility always happens through EM. TM is not a real-time visibility option. But if you because it requires an additional server and license, so within TM also you can also monitor. Yesterday, if you remember, I was telling you that there are a lot of statuses. You can trigger them manually, or you can build up an interface with different other applications to have the updates on the visibility. Okay. So that is what we have, the event management. So visibility is always important, and even some of the clients pay extra money to have a visibility of his shipment. So you can create a custom app for him, and through that app, once he enters the shipment number, he can see what is that or what is the status of the shipment, because you not like to give him an access to SAP, right? So someone go on mute, please. Can someone go on mute?
ATM there is a background noise. Passbook ilva. Passbook is Aadhaar card. Pan card. If there is no question, can everyone please mute?
I think he did not realize he has a mute operated. Okay. Okay, fine. So can someone check all the sound systems and settings? Please go on mute. Let me call
The background noise from attendee 6. Don't know who is attendee 6.
I don't think he's in front of the laptop. Maybe he has just switched on and gone off. This is not.
Virender, you can mute all your admin, right?
No, I am not the admin, unfortunately. I don't. I call Expertsoft. 1 minute. I am not the admin. 1 minute, I have called them. Just let's wait for 1-2 minutes. We are trying to reach the candidate. Do you know how to unmute everyone? I am not getting the option.
Naveen will.
Okay. Am I audible to everyone? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. See, this is the issue I have seen. Means people don't pay attention to the classes, they leave off, switch on the laptops, and then they will ask, I did not understand. That is one thing I request everyone, that the duration where we are all spending our critical time here, please focus on that 1 to 1.5 hour, so that you can understand the subjects. Okay. So these things actually I really dislike. If you just put it on, you disturb everyone. Anyway, so where we were, so we were in the execution and the subcontracting. I had explained that you need to have some way to track this. Either you can do within TM, or you can build up an interface between TM to other third-party system, site logistics systems, or any other portal from where the tracking and the tracing information will come in. Or you can have some other systems to integrate with TM, like as I told you, like like the event management system. Also, we have another cloud-based solution called as LBN, Logistics Business Network, which will provide these updates on the execution process. Okay.
LPN is also a standalone system.
Which one?
LPN, logistic.
LBN is
LBN.
basically the cloud-based solution. You need to have some APIs to connect your cloud-based system with the on-premise system. On-premise means your TM system. So it is not embedded. You have to buy a separate server license from SAP. It's a cloud-based solution. Okay. And once you have an update, so what we will do with the status update? See, status update can also trigger your subsequent process like settlement. So today you may have a requirement, okay, once my POD is reported, then only my settlement should be created, right? You can have such type of requirement. Because the main reason of having all these things is that once you're creating a freight settlement, a freight settlement is a draft invoice. And this draft invoice document only comes when your customer has received the goods. Then only you start triggering the payable process to the carrier. So you may have a requirement where, like for example, departure or POD can trigger this. Okay. So it is very important to have an understanding of these processes, what triggers when, and if so, you can also have that certain charges may be dependent on some events. For example, today I have a charge, a demurrage charge. So the demurrage charge will only come if you report an event demurrage. So that means the event demurrage needs to be reported somewhere. So that means this execution, what you do is always related to events. Events is a milestone. Loading is an event, departure is an event, checking is an event, POD is an event. So all these events have two applications. One from the process perspective, second from the charge management also you can do it. So today if I don't have demurrage, I will not have demurrage event or charge. So you can control in that way. So these are the two application areas of events. One on the status monitoring, second as part of the invoicing process, third for the charge calculation also you can have it. Any other question from anyone? Clear to everyone?
So Virendra, is it necessary to have the event management system knowledge as well?
Yes.
So are you conducting any session for that?
Event management, I will do an overview session because it's a separate module completely. Okay.
Okay.
But I will show you the baseline configuration, what is required. Okay. And from there we take. So, and we have an actually a TM EM is actually a technical module. Okay. Because event management, I do not have any transaction data, master data. It extracts the data from TM and displays it in the UI, just like an Amazon portal. Okay. So for that we need to have okay. So and we have a separate an advanced batch where we cover all these this EM in details. But for the basic course, we just give an overview session on the event management, because the main objective is to learn the core framework, which is the TM. The integration parts will always come in the, once you have confidence on the entire module, okay, then the integration part can come in. Okay.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Virendra.
So once this is done, then the last part is the charges and the settlement process. So what is charge and settlement? See, no one will do any service free of charge, right? So the carrier, who is ultimately the executing partner, has to be paid for their services. Now, how much the carrier will be paid, that is determined based on the contractual agreement. There is an agreement which we need to create between the shipper and the carrier, because ultimately the shipper and the carrier has to agree what is the amount I'm going to pay to the carrier, right? Or there will always be a dispute in the invoicing, right? So before you actually run the process, you need to have an agreement once the carrier is selected, that this is the amount I'm going to pay you. And based on that amount, once the execution part is done, you have to trigger the payment process. So the agreement has different structure. So in TM, we call it as a TCM framework. It's a framework. So the framework is called as a transportation charge management framework. So the framework will decide how the overall cost has been evaluated or derived at. So you have a scale, you have a rate table. So I'll come all these details. Scale means the criteria. Like for example, gross weight, net weight, volume, destination, distance, location, region. So these are the different parameters based on which you can charge different amounts, right? That means, for example, if you are using location as a criteria, so traveling from US to Germany and traveling from US to Dubai, the rates will be different. Or it is based on gross weight. So if I'm charging you a flat rate of 1,000 euro for 1,000 kg, but if it is 1,200 kg, I'm going to charge you 950 euro. So again, the criteria will decide what is the charges you're going to charge. Rate table is our old ECC concept of condition record. So within the rate table, you maintain the rates. So please don't confuse with what we have in ECC. I'm just trying to give a comparative element here, but it's not exactly apple to apple. Okay, so the structure is completely different, but if I compare, the rate tables is like a condition record where you maintain the content of what is the value you are maintaining, the records, and what is the evaluation based on which the records are maintained. Calculation sheet is your pricing procedure, like what are the different condition types, what is the different charge type. So before you create a calculation sheet, you need to create a charge type. Charge type is a condition type, because you need to identify what are the different charge elements, like basic freight is one charge, surcharge is one charge, discount is another charge. So these are different elements. And finally, when all this setup is done, you create an agreement. So when you click on an agreement, you can see calculation sheet, you can see charge types, you can see rate table, and you can see the scales. All can be done within one configuration node. And then based on the agreement between the shipper and the carrier, you need to maintain a carrier and a purchase organization in the agreement. When the purchase organization and the carrier in the agreement matches with that of the freight order, automatically charge calculation happens here. So there can be two reasons. There can be two reasons where the charge calculation is not happening. First of all, the organization data which you maintain in the agreement may not match with the freight order. Secondly, there can be a reason where in the rate table for different combinations, like suppose your combination is source location, destination location. Suppose your source location is US, destination location is Germany, but in the freight order, the source location is Finland, destination location is Sweden, and you don't have any rates for that. In that case, also rates will not be calculated. So the parameters maintained in the condition records needs to match with that here. Then only the value will come here. So it is important to have the charge calculation framework done, set up properly, and then only it will lead to the subsequent payment in the process. Okay. And I think all of you who know ECC must know that all the entire ECC costing, GL account, OBYC setup, your table process, all they are done in ECC. With TM does not care about account determination or account posting issue. The accrual posting problem is entirely within ECC, not with TM. Please make a note of that. That's why in any ECC process, when you do logistics invoice verification, that means when the finance guy does the invoice verification, he always needs a reference document, which is in standard ECC is the purchase order and the service entry sheet for service, right? If you are doing for a for a material, it is purchase order and good receipt. But if you are measuring with reference to services, it is service purchase order and service entry sheet. These two act as a reference, which your payables guy or the logistic invoice verification guy will check, validate, and then only will proceed for the payment to the carrier. So this is what you have. Okay, clear to everyone? Any other questions so far?
No.
So I think all of you may have understood what I tried to say today. So if there is anything which is not clear, please let me know. And the next variant what we'll study is the LSP flow. If you see, it's all the same. It's all the same except the fact that in case of LSP means DHL FedEx. So what you do in case of LSP, suppose you go to DHL and you tell them I want to transport my household articles from Germany to USA. So the customer service of DHL will ask you some details, that what materials you want to transport, where you want to transport, when you want to transport, what is the volume of the transport, all this information. Once the customer service of DHL gets from you, he or she will create a forwarding order. That means you don't need any sales order or purchase order in reference. So the starting of the triggering point of LSP is the forwarding order. You don't need any sales order or purchase order like a shipper flow. And once the forwarding order is created in the system, same process where you create a freight unit, you plan the freight unit, you create a freight order, and you create a. So if you see here, in case of LSP, this is the payable side because you are just planning. But please note, as a customer, I need to pay DHL, right? Because DHL is providing me a service. So that's the reason why once you create a forwarding order with a customer, at the same time, another settlement document is created. This is the receivable document. This is the amount which I as a customer need to pay DHL because I'm implementing TM for DHL now. So there are two processes. One is a payable process where DHL is outsourcing its operations to third-party carrier and he has to pay them for their services. And another is another settlement which is called as a forwarding settlement. This is the receivable process. As part of the receivable process, he is receiving the amount from the customer. So what happens once from the forwarding order charge calculation is done, you can create a settlement document and you can trigger a billing document in ECC because this is the receivable.
What is the triggering point for the forward order?
Forwarding order triggering point can come from any existing third-party legacy also to create a forwarding order by itself, or basically it can also be created or maintained manually. Triggering point is the information about what needs to be transported. So you can maintain what product to be transported, what container to be transported, where to be transported, when to be transported. So location information, date information, your stage information, all this information is required and it can trigger a forwarding order. So you can either create a forwarding order manually or it can also be triggered from a third-party interface also.
Okay, so SO is not required in this case.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what we are doing. And any other question?
LSP is more of a third-party logistic 3PL process.
Yes.
Okay.
Like DHL, FedEx, see there is a difference between shipper and LSP. LSP's main business process is transportation. They don't do manufacturing. They own a commodity. But if you go to a shipper process, shipper means their main core business is they are the owner of the commodities. They manufacture commodities. They supply commodity. So that means selling, purchasing, manufacturing, warehousing are the main core business. Transportation is not their core business. They have to do transportation because of the Incoterm. Okay.
Okay. So
But
shipper case, they have their own vehicles to transport it.
no, shipper doesn't have their own vehicle, or else they would not have subcontracted. Okay. So I will come to the process, what is the difference between shipper and LSP in the next class, so that I don't confuse all of you. But at least from the process perspective, so next day we'll start on with the difference between shipper and LSP on a business or industry perspective, how they operate, and then we'll directly go into the integration architecture. Okay. So because today was the first day, so I just kept a little bit low, so that at least the process flow, please, what I would say, listen to the recordings and try to adapt what I have told, whether it's understandable to you or not. Okay.
Yes. Next class is on next Saturday. Correct?
Yes. Next class is next Saturday.
As part of training, we do provide training videos, PPTs, SAP S4HANA server access for 3 months, certification materials, SAP Pressbooks, assessments which helps for the certification, training materials, interview questions and answers, sample resumes. Thanks for watching demo.